Hello and welcome to this first video in the A-Level Law series. We're going to be going through the OCR 2024 A-Level Law paper. We're looking at paper 1 and we're looking at section 8 to begin with, and we're just going to focus on the first question. For this video, the following videos will be added to a playlist. Obviously, feel free to have a look at those in your own time. You can download this paper off our website. It's the exact same as the OCR. You can obviously download it on theirs as well, but what we've done is we've inserted the lines for you to write in. So it just makes things a little bit easier in terms of note taking. So obviously feel free to go and download it. If you've got a blank piece of paper and you want to take notes on that, that's absolutely fine. We're not going to be writing an answer today. We're just going to be going through the actual content, okay? And sort of basing what we're going to be discussing off what the mark scheme says as well. Okay, we are in the process of creating a revision notebook. So these are with all the notes that I took when I was doing A-Level Law. That is in the process of being made. Obviously, try and keep you updated on this channel. But let's get started. So this question is asking us to focus on the civil cases in the civil courts. Okay, and they're asking us to have a look at how they are allocated to the appropriate tracks. Now, obviously, if you would have been studying A-Level Law for any period of time, I will say as well, actually, this says OCR, but this is also applicable to the WJC and in some cases AQA. Back to the question, if you've been studying A-Level Law for any sort of period of time, you will know that when they say track, they are referring to the three sort of categories that they put civil cases in. So for us, we've got the small claims track, you've got the fast track, and then the multi-track. Okay, I'm going to label them here. So the small claims, the fast track, and the multi-track. And we'll go into a little bit of detail about each of these. But basically, just so we've got a reference up here, and I'm going to change my colour when I do this. When we're talking about the small claims, we're looking up to claims of up to £10,000. Okay, remember in civil cases there is no there's no sort of jury, there's no sentence, okay? Usually with civil cases, it is always going to be about money, okay? So you've done something, this person wants compensation for it. Okay, so in the small claims track, we're looking at cases up to £10,000. And we are looking at, if we're talking about personal injury, that's a big one to note. For personal injury, I'm going to call it PI, that's very bad I there, up to 1,500. It's just good to know. We don't always discuss it when we're looking at the fast track and the multi-track, but it's just a good figure to know for the small claims because it does give you like a sort of baseline for where to start. When we're looking at the fast track, okay, so this is a little bit more complex. All right, we've got anywhere between £10,000 up to £25,000. Okay, so obviously still quite a considerable amount of money. And remember when I was saying about the personal injuries, that's going to be plus 1,500. So anything above 1,500 will be allocated to the fast track. And then when we're looking at the multi-track, so this is going to be for the cases which are worth the most. Okay, so they obviously have quite a bit of value to them. We are looking at the figures of anything really about over £25,000, and really that's again the most complex that they're going to get. So £25,000 plus, yeah. So, and again, obviously, personal injury, if it's a huge sum, that's why I say it's not always discussed in the others. It's just good to know 1,500 as a base figure. Now, I do want to point out that the answers, or the mark scheme, sorry, for the paper does also mention the intermediate track. Okay, Now, this is not something that is independently taught at the moment. It's not something that's always discussed. It is mentioned in the mark scheme. However, if you have a look at the mark scheme for the 2024 paper, which is obviously the one that we're doing now, it does say on there that the immediate track is not actually necessary for full marks, so you don't need to mention it. As long as you've got a base or solid base understanding of the small claims, the fast track and the multi-track, you will be fine. Okay, so let's have a look at sort of the process first. So remember, when somebody wants to take a case against someone in a civil dispute, okay, remember when we're talking about civil disputes, we are discussing things like compensation that's owed to them. There could be the biggest one is a tort, with any tort cases, the tort of negligence and whatnot. Again, there's no sentences for civil cases, it's mainly about the money. But when you want to take a case out against someone, you fill in, the first step is to fill in, okay, the form, which is N1, okay? And this can actually, if you Google it, you can actually see what the N1 form looks like. Okay, and what this does is it gives the court an idea, or the clerk or whoever's going through the paperwork, gives the court the idea of the situation. Okay, again, we're not going to be writing the answers, we're just sort of going through the content of it. So the M1 gives the clerk or whoever's going through the paperwork an idea of the situation, what's happened. In the form, you will be asked to fill in details, such as your personal details. So your personal details, and also the details of the defendant, basically, of the defendant or the person you were trying to take this claim out against. All right, so that's the N1 form. There's also obviously a time period for the defendant to accept or defend the claim. Okay, so that's usually 14 days. Okay, so the defendant then has 14 days to accept the claim, or deny the claim. Okay, and what that means is obviously if they accept it, they accept that they are liable, they're responsible for what happened. If they deny it, obviously that'll cause a what we call a defense to happen. Okay, so they have the option to put in a defense against the claim or defend the claim is probably the better way of phrasing it. Defend the claim. All right, so that is the two sort of, I call them the admin stages. Obviously, I wouldn't word them admin stages, but that's what you've got to do as the claimant. Okay, so that's the admin stuff out of the way. Now, what happens when it actually gets to the court or in the hands of the clerk? Well, the cases are always allocated, again, to the appropriate tracks that we've mentioned above, and it's done in a couple of different ways. Okay, so for example, if it's being allocated in the county court, a district judge allocates in the county court. Okay, a district judge will allocate in the county court, or you can also mention a master in the High Court. That's sort of delving into a little bit more like deeper things. To be honest, the best sort of way to go about wording it is obviously if you want to talk about which judge allocates which cases to what, brilliant, if that's the knowledge that you have done in your own time reading up on it. But the best way to word it is like this. So cases will be allocated to one of three tracks, depending on their value and their complexity. Okay, so the cases will be allocated to one of three tracks, depending on their value and their complexity. All right, and that will get you the mark for that. And then you can actually start, bringing in this little figure, I suppose you could call it, into your answer. I'll write it out again, obviously in a bit neater, but again, you can pop these into a paragraph. I wouldn't recommend bullet pointing them, just to be on the safe side. Bullet points may be acceptable, but I would sort of go with sticking to paragraphs. So there's one of the three tracks. Okay, so the small claims, exactly what it sounds like. For damages or reparations or whatever you want to call it, up to £10,000 or 1,500 for personal injury. You've got the fast track, which is for cases from 10,000 up to 25,000. Okay, and that's anything above 1,500 for personal injury. I'm going to call it personal injury. And then the multi-track, which is your sort of your biggest track of where the most complex cases are going to be needed. That's going to be for your cases of upwards of £25,000. And that's for your most. You could probably also make a note here on the multi-track if you wanted to talk about the small track as well. Being the starting point. So I'd maybe make a note about the multi-track. The multi-track will deal with high value cases. And also very complex. That's not very good English. You probably put high value and very complex cases, but you get the idea. So, and also very complex cases. Okay, so that's sort of your basic teaching of what civil cases and your allocation to the appropriate track. I hope you found this video helpful. If you've got any questions or suggestions, obviously leave them down below. And yeah, happy revising.